Good morning, Agent Rick. Aircraft that depart from a wrong runway are a significant issue affecting the air traffic control system. Event reports gathered from multiple sources show that wrong runway events occur at many airports under varying circumstances, sometimes with tragic results. Using various database searches, 696 event reports were analyzed. Your mission, Agent Rick, should you choose to accept it, is to share best practices to help controllers be alert for potential wrong runway departures. This tape will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
On January 25, 2002, at Anchorage International Airport, a China Airlines A340 was taxiing for departure on runway 32. The A340 was cleared for takeoff on runway 32 while taxiing on taxiway Romeo as it approached taxiway Kilo. The A340 turned onto taxiway Kilo and held short of runway 32 briefly. The aircraft was expected to make a right turn on runway 32 for departure, but instead accelerated west on taxiway Kilo. The tower controllers noticed the departure roll and activated the emergency phone network. The local controller did not instruct the A340 to abort takeoff as he felt it was too late. The A340 departed and proceeded on to its destination without further incident. After examination, main landing gear tire impressions were found in the snow berm at the west end of taxiway Kilo. The measured distance from the point of takeoff roll to the end of taxiway Kilo is 6,800 feet. The calculated takeoff distance for this aircraft was 7,746 feet. The heading on taxiway Kilo is 240 degrees, 80 degrees left, of course, of runway 32.
It has been determined that 5 common elements often contribute to wrong runway departures. Your objective now is to discover the first of the 5 common elements. Proceed to the Washington Monument, where an operative will give you further instructions. This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
Are you a tourist? Are you lost?
Well, I'm not very familiar with this area, and it's really confusing. All the entrances and exits are really close to each other.
Well, if you're not familiar, maybe you should check a map or ask for directions. Here, maybe this will clear things up for you.
You have experienced the first of the 5 common elements that contribute to wrong runway departures: multiple runway thresholds in close proximity to one another. The analysis of wrong runway departures reveals that most events take place in areas where one taxiway leads to multiple runway thresholds.
In 1989, the NTSB investigated an incident where an MD-80 was cleared for takeoff on runway 12 right, but departed from runway 17. Making the matter worse was the fact that the south 2,200 feet of runway 17 was closed because of construction. The information was included in the NOTAMs and the ATIS. As the aircraft rotated, it struck sections of wooden barriers that had been placed across runway 17, causing minor damage to the aircraft. The NTSB found that the incident was caused when the flight crew failed to follow taxi instructions and to ensure they were on the proper runway before initiating takeoff roll. Remember that the pilot's perspective at ground level is vastly different from the view from the tower cap.
Continue on to the Washington Monument to determine the next contributing factor for wrong runway departures. This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
Excuse me, officer, could you help me?
Are you lost?
I'm trying to find the Washington Monument.
Well, it's right there.
Huh. Well, it looks a lot farther away on the map.
Here, maybe this will help.
You have experienced a second element that contributes to wrong runway departures: a short taxi distance. A short distance between the terminal and the runway requires flight crews to complete the checklist in a shorter time frame. This requires more heads-down time during taxi. Many of the event reports mention that the flight crew members were rushed to complete their checklists or to expedite their departures.
We had been cleared for takeoff on runway 23 left. Because of the short distance between the terminal and the runways, we had a very short taxi time. We had completed our taxi checklist just as we reached the hold short lines and were immediately cleared for takeoff. As the captain taxied out to line us up, he has the nose steering on his side only. I ran my lineup checklist as he said hello to the passengers over the PA system. Lined up on the wrong runway, I took the throttles and began takeoff roll. The tower controller called us to tell us we were taking off on the wrong runway. We were at about 35 knots, and so I aborted.
Controllers need to be cognizant of the fact that pilots that have short taxi distances may not have sufficient time to complete their checklists or to expedite their takeoff. Agent Rick, proceed to the LaFont Plaza subway station to determine the third contributing factor for wrong runway departures. This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
are you lost again?
Yeah, how does anybody find anything on that map?
Perhaps you need to take a look at this.
Okay, thanks.
You have experienced the third element that contributes to wrong runway departures: complex airport design. A complex airport design and complex taxi instructions can cause confusion among the flight crew. Factors include complicated taxi instructions, the use of several taxiways, and the need for multiple clearances to cross other runways in order to reach the departure runway. Proceed to the Vietnam Memorial to determine the fourth contributing factor for wrong runway departures. This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
You can't ride your bike here. This is pedestrians only.
Well, I didn't know that. There aren't any signs.
Park your bike and check this out.
You have experienced the fourth element that contributes to wrong runway departures: the use of a runway for taxiing. In operations that require a pilot to use a runway for taxiing, incidents have occurred in which the aircraft took off from the runway that was being taxied on instead of the assigned runway. Proceed to the International Spy Museum to determine the fifth and final contributing factor for wrong runway departures. This message will self-destruct in 3 seconds.
You again. You're going the wrong way. Can't you see this is a one-way street? You're supposed to be going that way.
Oops, my bad.
Here, maybe this will get you going in the right direction.
All right, thanks.
have experienced the fifth element that contributes to wrong runway departures: the use of intersection departures. For example, aircraft, while taxiing onto the runway, turn in the wrong direction, taking off 180 degrees from the intended direction. Well done, Agent Rick. You have discovered the 5 common elements that often contribute to wrong runway departures. But keep in mind, there are other factors that contribute, such as language barriers, fatigue, confusing signage, construction, poor airport lighting, severe weather, frequency congestion, multiple runways in use, approving non-standard pilot requests. Wrong runway events have decreased from their peak in the 1990s. Still, the 5 common elements that contribute most to wrong runway departures continue to be present at many U.S. airports.